All right. Welcome back, you guys, to Done with Adulting podcast. This is Asia, obviously. Jared is not with us today, unfortunately, due to adulting shit, basically. But that is okay because our guest marathon that's happening for the rest of the month starts today, and I am super excited. Even though Jared's not here, I have one of my best friends coming on the podcast today. And I'm just really excited about this topic because I feel like we've touched on it before with you guys in terms of like racial disparities in the healthcare system in America. So I am super excited to have my friend Sydney on the podcast. Sydney and I went to Howard together, HU.
You know?
And we met and immediately clicked because I'm pretty sure the first day we met, Sid was wearing like a Celtic sweatshirt or something. And I was like, "Are you from Boston? Are you wearing a Celtic sweatshirt?" And she was like, "Not from Boston, but I love the Celtics. And now we're going to be friends for life." So that is literally how Sid and I met. We got our masters at Howard together in social work. So Sid has her MSW. She is a donor trained birth doula and the founder of From Sid with Love. You can follow her at From Sid with Love on Instagram. So please welcome Sid. I'm so happy you're on, Sydney.
Thank you. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
This is so much fun. And I feel like, so obviously everybody who's listening to this is aware that I am not a mom. Sid is a mom, and it's just crazy because this is like a total sidebar, but it's just crazy because when we met, I just remember when we were in school and we were literally 23 and you were like always talking about how excited you were to be a mom. And this was like when you first met Mo. Like we didn't even know Mo was going to be the one yet. Well, we like kind of knew just off like the fact that he's was awesome, but I don't know. I just feel like that's like what I always identified you with. Like Sid is going to be the best mom. She's going to have like 6 kids or something. Like she's going to be the first one out of our friend group, which you were. And it's awesome for me because I feel like when I do have a kid, you're going to be like my go-to person. I'm going to be like, Sid, help. So before we talk about like what a doula is and really get into the depths of racial disparities in the healthcare system, I have to like take a deep breath because the thought of like it's like so overwhelming. Tell us like a little bit about sort of like how you got sort of like your path to becoming a doula. Like what made you decide you wanted to like take this route?
Yeah. I remember that too. And I was wondering if you're gonna bring that up because I feel like so many of my friends have a story like that where they're like, damn, we knew you're gonna be the first one pregnant, first of all. And like you always talked about being somebody's mama. So I like that's the first thing I think about too when like I think about how we met. It's like one, we had like so many of our classes together because we were both on the macro track, we are both on the healthcare track. And then like we bonded over the Celtics. And also we bonded over the time that we met our significant others because you met Terrence around the same time that I met Mo. And it was like,
what month did you met Mo in like September?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then I met Terrence in like November, like 2 months later.
Yep.
So yeah, we've basically been with those men the same amount of time.
So yeah, I think so social work, right? I started, I got my BSW, my bachelor's at Arizona State. I knew from the jump I did not want to do clinical social work. I wanted to do community social work. I was really always interested and focused on like comprehensive sex education, like access to like STI testing and birth control and like real education about like what is happening with your body and like getting pregnant. And then I also have like a deep passion for like nonprofit work and youth development, like summer camps, after school programs. That is my jam. Like I'm all for that. I love that. So both of those, and working in both of those fields for so long and working with families and working in parent education and like doing things with parents and children. And then after having my daughter and having my own birth experience with the doula, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, it's like, it was like a perfect bridge to what I really wanted to do, right? Like I've always wanted to work with families, and it's like, well, let's work with the family before baby's even here. Like like now I'm working with families like prenatal through college, essentially. Like I'm working with children that long. So like that's dope. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
really wanted to become a doula because I saw like just from my own experience and then learning about other people's experiences, like why not really like the extra support, the education, the emotional support, like the empowerment of like understanding like this is your birth and like this is your experience and also like
Hmm.
just like knowing the difference between like what is required on the medical side, right? It's like it was so important and it was such
Whew.
like an uh, empowering experience, I guess, that, like, I was like, "I wanna be a part of it on that side." And I knew I
Yeah.
had the capacity to be on that side because, like, I was already doing the work essentially, like, outside of the birth center, right, and outside of the birth space, so it was like the continuation. I was like, "Alright, let's do this." So, a few months after having my daughter, I did my training, and that was, like, almost a year ago now, so here
Wow.
we are.
That's awesome. Okay, so also disclaimer, I said this to Sid before we started recording, but I am like so ignorant on all things birth. Like I'm obviously not at that phase of my life yet. When I get there, I'm quite sure I will educate myself, but I told Sid, I was like, this is generally going to be like me asking actual questions that I don't know the answer to. Like, I'm not just asking these questions for y'all. I truly am like, Sid, I need you to tell me all the things. Um, because I feel like we hear so many things, right? Like, when I even mention to people, like, oh, yeah, my friend is a doula, like, oh, I know a black doula if you need one, they're like, literally, people's first reaction to me is like, I'm not having like an at home water birth. Like, why do
Yeah.
I need a doula? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not the only thing doulas do. And they're like, no, yeah, it is. And I'm like, I want to argue, but I don't know the facts. So we're literally just gonna like start with the basics, which is like truly like what is a doula? Like why would somebody going through their birth plan or like who's pregnant or about to give birth, like why would somebody be interested in a doula or want a doula? They're not just for at-home water births, I'm pretty sure, question mark. So can you just like give us some more information overall about like what a doula is?
Yeah, so I'm gonna apologize in advance if I go on a tangent because like doula work and birth work in general is like a lot, right? Like just like social work, it's a lot. It looks like from the outside it's a little bit, but it's a lot that goes into it. So a doula is essentially someone who's there to provide like educational, emotional, and physical support, right? Like educational as far as like what are newborn procedures that are going to happen after the baby, or like what am I going through, like what is my body going through as I'm being pregnant, um what are things that I should talk to my doctor about, or what are things, or like my doctor mentioned this to me, do I have to do that, like what, like breaking it down like in actual like terms that people can understand, right?
Mm,
Emotional as far as like I know you're going through a lot, like we're talking about like what is happening. And for me, like I like to work with the family. So like I'm not just the doula for the birthing person. Like your partner or grandma or mama, whoever wants to be in the space and like is going to be supporting you, like bring everybody, because our goal
mhm,
is to create a support system that's going to be able to essentially give you whatever you need in that space to provide a healthy and safe birthing experience.
right.
Um, and then physical support, that's where you mostly see like you see doulas doing like the double hip squeeze and using like blankets or rebozo and doing
Yeah,
like
you
back
lost me
rubs
on
and
it.
so that's like giving like actual like physical comfort. Some doulas like like provide massages during their prenatal visits and like foot rubs
Mm,
and things like that. And like encouragement of like and, like reminding you like you got this far. Like you ain't just having a baby right here in this moment. You've been having a baby for the last 9 months, right? So like you're prepared, and like just reminding someone in that space, because there's a lot going on inside somebody's body and in somebody's mind when they're in labor and when they're about to give birth, right? So
yeah.
you're kind of just being there, just like a social worker does with their clients. Like you're providing that extra support, reminding them of the strength that they already have.
Right.
I'm not here to have your baby for you. I'm here to remind you that you can have your baby and to help you have the experience that you want. And so, also to that point, it's like that really is specific to a labor or a birth doula, which is what I am. But there are postpartum doulas who come in, and they actually, after baby's here, they come to your house. They, depending on what kind of package or services that doula provides, but they're helping you like clean up. They're watching the baby and feeding the baby while you shower. They're making you
Huh.
food. They're bringing you food. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like, this is really like a birth partner, like a coach, or like just an extra support sister person, because doulas are not only women as well. There are male doulas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you have doulas who work in the realm of like miscarriage and abortion, or like, providing that support on the side of birth loss, and that's really important. And then you have
Wow.
doulas that do fertility work, and sex doulas who are like, let's get the baby here, like, what I'm saying, like this is before there's even a baby, period. Like, so
What?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That is crazy. So like all those different types of doulas, like is that all different types of certifications? Like you're a labor and like delivery doula. And so like if you wanted to, do postpartum doula or any of the other ones you just named, are you certified to do that or are those different certifications, if that makes sense?
So there's different trainings. Yeah. So like you could go to like a postpartum doula training where you're going to get in depthly more information, right? But to that point as well, like doula work and birth work is like natural work that has been happening before there was actual name to it, right? Before there was licenses and certifications, just like social work, there was things
Right.
already happening, right? And more so, like this was happening in the Black community, like the granny midwives and things. Like Black women were delivering babies before hospitals, right? And they were doing this
Mm,
as midwives, and they were training other women in the community to do this, and they were being doulas without having the title of a doula. So there
mm,
are women, there are doulas, there are people that are doulas that are doing this from their own like experience and training. They don't have a certification, like, what I'm saying. They're doing this
mm.
because this is what they've been doing forever, and this is what their families have been doing forever. So it's natural. So we have to, like, as much as like there are certifications and stuff, we have to remember that in birth work is like natural work that came out of like essentially Black women.
Right.
And so as great as it is to go through organizations and get certifications, like to be a doula, and if you're wanting to do birth work, sometimes that really comes naturally and out of like, I guess, essentially like an apprenticeship type of deal.
Sure. Okay, I literally have 1,000 questions going around going in my head, and some of them I may not have pre-sent you, so I apologize
All
for
good.
that.
All good.
But so I'm trying to think of the best order to ask my questions. They're all literally circling in my mind. I guess my first thing that's at the top of my head is like, at specifically like, especially talking about racial disparities in healthcare. Why do you feel like, because from an external perspective, it definitely seems like Black women are using doulas or hiring doulas more than white women. I'm not sure if that is just because of what you said, like sort of birth work started with Black women, or I guess what I'm trying to get to is why do you feel like it is beneficial for Black women to work with doulas, especially considering those healthcare disparities, and like what's the advantage? I guess.
Right. So I think there is like you're seeing like an uptick, like you said, like you're seeing more women, like you're seeing more doulas coming, like you're
Yeah.
seeing doula work being talked about, really, right?
Yes. Yes.
Which is great. And I like I mean, at least for the Black doulas that I'm around, like that's what we want. Like we're wanting people to be like, oh, what's a doula? Like, like, should I be getting a doula? Yes. Like, and here is a doula for you. Like, what I'm saying? Like, there's a doula for everybody. And so for us, or for me, essentially, like, I think it's important because we know that like in the history of the US, right? Like racism runs deep, and racism and the medical system, like they intersect. Like, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like there is racism within the medical system. And so when we think about that, we have to think about, okay, what's happening? And we know that Black birthing people are dying in hospitals. It's like specifically they're dying. And these aren't things that like we like, oh, that was unpreventable. Like these are preventable. You know what I'm saying? And like
Mm.
it comes down to the structures that are built around the process of having a birth in a hospital. Like if we're
Mm,
specifically talking to hospital about hospital births, so like for us, it's important to have someone that's there that like is going to focus on you, right? Like in the U.S. medical system, doctors don't have I guess I heard a midwife say like doctors don't have the privilege of patience, right? Like you see it all the time. Like you're sitting in an office for 45 minutes to go to a prenatal, and your prenatal is going to be 15 minutes with your doctor. Like
right.
so like but the way that the medical system is set up, doctors don't have time to sit with you for an hour and be like, all right, so like, what's really up. So a doula has that time, right? So like
Mm,
essentially like we're not taking away anything. Like it's a support that could be helpful to the whole entire system, right?
right.
So like we're there to give that extra education that doctors can't, to build, to bridge that gap, to give that extra emotional support that some doctors can't provide, because in some medical trainings, like they don't really, in my opinion, there's not like a focus on comforting the actual patient and understanding
Mm-hmm,
the patient, right? It's not like, okay,
mm-hmm.
let me realize that this is a Black woman in a hospital and she's birthing and she might be a little bit scared, so let me listen up to her a little bit. Like they don't have, like, not all everyone has that like line of thinking, and they don't have that time to even go through that whole process of thinking. So
Right,
it's really important just to have someone there, and also have someone that looks like you and can identify like with you, because then that's just an extra added comfort measure, right?
right,
Like
right,
I feel like this person gets me because like they can understand from a cultural aspect, um, me a little bit more. So like I know that they're acting in my best interest because they're focusing solely on me. So
yeah.
that's why I think it's super important to have a doula, for any type of birthing person, Black birthing person, especially in any kind of setting, whether it's a hospital or a home birth or birthing center.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can have. So to my original question, which is like doulas aren't just what people think like at home water birth. Like you can have a doula in the hospital room with you.
Yeah, you can have a doula in a hospital room. You can have a doula if you're having a planned C-section. You can have a doula if you're having an unplanned C-section. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can have a doula if you have a planned induction. Like in
Mm.
any kind of birthing experience or any kind of birthing space, there's a doula that will provide services and support to that experience. Guaranteed.
And I always think about too the um did you see the Serena Williams HBO it's like about her her whole birthing experience and like when she was pregnant and then she had Olympia and then it was like her trying to get back onto the court after. And after she had her baby, she was in the hospital room and she almost died. Like Serena Williams almost died in the hospital room after birth because she didn't feel right. And she kept telling her doctors that she didn't feel right.
Mhm.
And the doctor was like, no, we took your blood work. Like, you're fine. Everything's fine. And she still didn't feel right. And it got to the point where she had to, like, literally raise her voice to her nurses and her doctor and say, I don't feel like something feels off. Test
Mhm.
me again right now. Like basically demanding to be tested. And when they did that, after she demanded it, they found a ginormous blood clot in her leg that could have killed her had she not stood up for herself. So
Right.
I feel like also maybe like an advantage of having a doula is like in that type of situation when you feel like you're screaming at the top of your lungs, like that something doesn't feel right. And you don't know what that something is. You're not a doctor. You've never been through this experience before. You have no idea. You just know you feel off.
Mhm.
Having a doula in the hospital room to say, like, to walk up to the nurse and be able to have that education to say, like, this is how she feels. This is what I don't think is right. This, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that's also a huge advantage in those type of situations. And Serena, she didn't have a doula in that situation. She's fucking Serena. So she was able to stick up for herself and
Right.
like get the help she needed. But she said in her documentary, like, you know your body. Like,
Absolutely.
even if you've never given birth before, like that was her first time giving birth. And she was like, you just know your body and you have to trust that you know your body and that if something feels off to you, it probably is. And I feel like the biggest struggle that Black women and Black people see in the healthcare system is not being taken seriously and not being able to say, like, it's so funny because one of my younger cousins who literally just graduated from undergrad, and she did like a nursing degree, she literally showed me her textbook, and she was like, she opened up her textbook, and it was like talking about different symptoms and how they appear in different races. And in the textbook it literally said, like, under African American, like, may say they feel more pain than they actually have, or something like ridiculous. This is in
Ridiculous.
a textbook. This girl went to George Mason University. Like,
Yeah.
this is in a full textbook that they are teaching
Yeah.
today in 2020. That blows my freaking mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's scary. And so it's like, so now I'm getting like on a soapbox because I'm getting worked up. But like now, right? Like, I have not had a child before. I'm getting closer to that phase in my life. Everything around us in the media about just like race and racism is very heightened right now, as it should be and should always be. But it's like, holy shit, like, the statistics of Black women dying from childbirth compared to white women are alarming.
Right.
The if Serena can barely get listened to in the hospital room,
Right.
how the hell is anyone going to listen to me? And like the fear around that. And so I feel like, is that something also like that you've had to help your clients with, in terms of just like being mentally prepared to give birth?
Yeah, and I think, like, a lot of that goes into, like, the preparation of, like, of empowerment, I guess, or, like, in my head, I like, picture it as, like, me, like, holding, like, the punching bag, and then, like, my clients, like, punching, like, "We're getting ready for you to walk in there and, like, ask exactly what you need to ask," you know what I'm saying? And, like, essentially, it's like I feel like for me, the crazy thing is like we look at the medical system and like we walk into these hospital rooms and we look at doctors as being like, okay, here's a doctor, like he knows everything or she knows everything. Let me just like, and like we're timid, right? And it's like, I'm paying you. I'm spending hella money right now in this hospital to have this baby. Sit down and listen to me. And like, I know you don't have
Yeah.
the time, but like right now I'm being loud. So like, I really need you. I know you don't have time. So I'm not going to bother you if I don't need you, but I'm saying I need you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so like, it's that. And it's also like, and being informed and having informed consent, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is your
Huge.
you are at the hospital, but this is your body. So they're not gonna come in and do anything unless you say yes. And that's okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's a true emergency, your doctor is not gonna come in and like give you options. But you can ask right now, do I have options? And then you'll know the difference between a true emergency and just like them trying to speed some stuff along. Right?
It's okay.
Like, sorry, because now I'm on my soapbox because I think that's where the biggest issue falls is like they have us as birthing people, period, like timid to ask questions because like we're scared, like or like we're like, well, if it was something, then the doctor would tell me, right? And like sometimes no. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like I've had clients who are like, I didn't know I was high risk. I just saw it on my paperwork. Like, what? Like,
What?
how does that even no, we're gonna revisit that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna call your doctor and ask like what is it? And you have the right to do that without feeling like you're bothering them because your life is in their hands. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And like and you deserve that. And again, you're paying. Birth is not cheap.
I
You know
was
what I'm
gonna
saying?
say.
Like this is not a cheap game. I am not about to throw my pennies around for you to just treat me like nothing. You are about to give me the service I am paying for. You feel me? Like give me what I deserve. Pay me what you owe. Like you are not about to give me some rinky dink service.
Right. No, that's so real though. And so that brings me to my next question too, which is like, I feel like doula services range, as you said,
Yeah.
like huge range of what a doula can provide for you. My question is, what, like, truly and honestly, like, what can a doula cost? Like, even if it's a range, like the lowest to the highest a doula could cost, depending on what you're getting. And is that something that insurance covers? Like, how do
Yeah.
we get into that side of it?
Okay. So yeah, so doula services, there's a range of prices, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
but again, like I want to emphasize that there is a doula for everybody. Like doula services, and there it's also going to depend on where you're at, right? Like doula services
Mm-hmm.
in DC, like might run you like $800 to $1,400 depending on your package and who your doula is. um, that might be different for like people in Arizona or people in North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? So like it's gonna depend on like the region you're in and also the services. Like if you're getting a doula who's gonna be your birth and postpartum doula, and she also does like placenta encapsulation, and she's also going to do like prenatal massage and things like that. Like your package might be more expensive. Um, to that note, there are community programs that provide free and low cost doulas, and there are some doulas that provide low cost rates and sliding scales because they want to work with low income families or families that need like a cushion, right? In terms of insurance, it depends again on your state and on your insurance. Some insurance companies do allow you to, um, um, list your doula services under your insurance. Some don't. So that really depends. And I know, like, there are doulas or there like, it is encouraged, like, if you're having, like, a baby shower or something, like, encouraging people to, like, chip in on, like, your doula, right?
Yeah.
But, like, to that point too, I was just reading this morning, and it was talking about how, like, specifically for Black doulas, like, it's kinda hard when you want to do this stuff full time, but you wanna serve your community, right? Like, if we're talking about, like, disparities in the Black community, we're talking about low income families who don't have access, right? And, like, their insurance isn't gonna cover it, but they don't have $800 for a doula. So then you have doulas
Right.
who are like, "Alright, well, I'm gonna do it for a low fee because I want you to have a doula," but then that doula now has to work 2 other jobs or, like, a full-time job on top of possibly being a parent and, like, doing all these other things because those are the services that they wanna provide. So it's like, dang, here we are
Hmm.
wanting to do for our community again, but then like, how do we do for ourselves? And so like, I know in like there are some Black doulas who like talk about that a lot, and I saw a Facebook conversation about that this morning, and we were just like, it's hard, like you have to figure out like, well, how do I do this balance? And so I think that's why some doulas do like the sliding scale and community work, and some doulas will work for organizations and things so that they can make that balance.
Hmm. So that makes total sense. And it really is all coming to get to light of how like closely doula work and social work is one and the same. Like at least that's how it seems to me now that I'm learning more, because all the same things you're talking about in terms of like providing services at a low cost. And we always say, I mean, we're social workers, so we truly believe this, but like we always say that like we should get, defund the police and fund social workers. Like if you want to really help these people, you know, teach a man to fish, they eat for a lifetime. Like you need social workers to do
Right.
that. And social workers, as we know, are highly underpaid, highly underappreciated,
Yeah.
most often disregarded, even though we have licenses and master's
Yeah.
degrees and literal full educations that prepared us to be social workers. So I can see that similarity.
Yeah, like, imagine if, like, Child and Family Services were able to have, like, doulas that they provided. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if that was, like, a service that was
mm,
also, like, provided under like, imagine if doula services were provided under government contracts and under government programs for the
mm.
public. It
I
would
mean,
make
the
so much
government doesn't even give us maternity leave. So why the hell would
Yeah,
they give us
that part.
doulas?
Yeah, that part too. Yeah.
Every other country in the damn world has paid maternity leave for mothers, some for a full 12 months, because
Yeah.
we all know we aren't recovered after no damn 8 weeks. So,
Listen, okay, okay, don't even get me started on that because, like, I understand specifically, birth is difficult, but specifically for birthing people who go through C-sections, like a cesarean, the fact that you think that after somebody cut me open and I had major surgery, I go home with a newborn, and you think that
baby, yeah.
after 8 weeks, I can get up and go do some shit. What?
Yeah,
And I'm
so
just and
you,
I'm supposed to be, like, mentally and emotionally prepared to, like, be around all these, like, random folks and be away from my baby that I was just literally with for 9 months, like, think about what you're asking me to do.
yeah, that's insane. So can you, if you're comfortable with it, can you walk us a little bit through like your birth experience and like if because we talk about these things like we talk about, and I want to get into some of the things you wrote about like how a black mother's experience in a hospital might be different than a white mother's in terms of just like what they're told to do or not told to do, et cetera, et cetera. And some of those things that cause the unfortunate death of black mothers. But Can you walk us through a little bit like of your birth experience? If you know, I'm pretty sure your how you ended up giving birth was different than your original plan. And did you feel, I don't know the best way to ask this, but those differences that we always talk about, that, you know, white women get better care than black women, like did you feel that in the hospital?
Right. Yeah, so, yeah, totally different experience than what I expected. So of course we were super excited about getting pregnant. We like had planned um on getting pregnant, which is really funny because because when we were in grad school, Asia, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm thinking about? Whoo. Okay. Yeah, definitely like little sidebar, definitely had a pregnancy scare during grad school and Asia had to like get me all together. Like shout out to her for being there for me. But
Oh, I did not
this
think you were going to say
time,
that. And I totally forgot about that. Wow. Good
yeah.
times.
Yeah, man. But this time was like, okay, like we're trying to do this. Like we got pregnant and we're really excited. I actually was seeing a like an OBGYN at during like the majority of my pregnancy, but I did not like her. And it was really unfortunate
Mm,
because she was a black woman and I was really excited. But we just did not gel. Like I just like I don't feel comfortable. Like I don't feel supported. Like I don't feel like I want to be feeling when I walk out of this doctor's office. On
right.
top of, like, I just sat here for 45 minutes to see you, and I only saw you for 10 minutes. And this is my first kid, you know, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be asking you, and at that time, I didn't have my doula, and so at, like, 30 weeks, I was like, "I'm gonna switch providers, and I'm gonna hope to, like, find someone," and at that point, I was like, "I really wanna try to do a water birth." I was looking for midwives, and I was also looking for my doula, and I was 30 weeks, so, like, this is kinda late into my pregnancy to be doing all of this. I was able to switch my provider. I went over and I started seeing the midwives at GW Hospital, George Washington University. They were great. Like my first appointment with that midwife was like an hour long and I like cried because I was so
Aw.
happy with how supportive she was and she was the bomb. Like bomb.com and we were seeing her and at that point I had like secured my doula and she was really great too and like I learned so much from her just in a short period of time and like on top of that, like when I switched my provider at 30 weeks, I had just found out from my midwife that I was anemic and I had been anemic this whole time. Like my doctor
Oh,
actually
shit.
mentioned that. And so like here I am 30 plus weeks into my pregnancy, my iron's super low. Like, okay. Um, so
That's
you know,
scary.
here I am trying to like, you know, focus on like my nutrition for this last 10 weeks of pregnancy. And we go for our 36-week checkup. So it's like we're like 36 in like a few days pregnant. And my midwife is like, yeah, your blood pressure is, or yeah, super high. Like you, like, I'm going to come back and check you. Like maybe it's because you just took the stairs or maybe because you like, you know, just walked in, but I'm going to come back and check you. And we'll see. And so like I sat there, you know, tried to calm down, came back super high. And she was like, I am not gonna let you go to work. Like I can't let you go to work. And so she's like, I need you to go across the street to the hospital. And I'm gonna call the midwife who's on staff there. She's gonna know that you're there and we're just gonna see. We're gonna get you checked out. So like now I'm panicking. I'm like,
Right.
okay. So we go across the street and and Mo's being like total all-star, like of course. We go across the street and they admit me and they're like, yeah, your blood pressure is high. All these moving pieces. And then they're like, they do a urine sample, come back, you have high protein in your urine. You are showing like signs of severe preeclampsia. I'm like, oh,
Okay, hold on. Pause, because I remember when you texted me this, you're like, I'm going to the hospital. I have high blood pressure. And I'm like, at work, I immediately set myself into a panic. And I'm like, what do you mean? Are you okay? You're like, they're running tests, but most likely I'm not going home. Like, I have preeclampsia. What is preeclampsia?
yeah. So essentially, preeclampsia is high blood pressure during pregnancy, you know, and so,
Why is it so dangerous? Because I feel like a lot of Black women do suffer from this.
yeah, well, so again, I'm not like a total expert, but like from my experience, they were worried about like me stroking out. They're worried about my blood pressure like getting too high. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then
Mm,
at the same time, worried about Amina because she's inside of me. So,
right.
so their big thing is like we can't get your blood pressure to come down. So what do we do? And so like we don't want you to go into distress. So like the thinking is like, okay, well, we need to try to get baby out so that maybe when baby comes out, mom's blood pressure will drop. That's like essentially what I got from my experience.
Okay. Okay. So within a day, I feel like you were like, okay, we're having a C-section. Like literally the next day or
So
something like that.
so yeah, so also like nurses are really like the key to your hospital birth experience because I had a nurse come in like and she was an intern because so GW Hospital is a it's like it's connected to the university, so it's a student hospital, it's a teaching hospital. So I was like okay with having like the student nurses and stuff come in, and I had one who she was really really sweet, and she was like, I'm gonna give you like the real lowdown on preeclampsia, and I wish I would have remembered everything, but she like sat there and like talked me through this whole thing, and she's like, they're
Mm-hmm,
gonna try
mm-hmm,
this,
mm-hmm.
they're gonna try this. So yeah, so they came back and they're like, okay, the growth protein, we're gonna have to put you on a catheter. And so and like and on this medication, blah blah blah. And then the doctor came back and she's like, we're having a baby. And so I was like, okay, this is on a Thursday, right? And my parents are on the other side of the country, thinking that
Yeah.
we have 3 more weeks for them to come out here. So like instant panic, that doesn't help my blood pressure go down.
Right.
So also my mom is like, you have to stop calling your dad because his blood pressure is going up because we have a history of high blood pressure on his side of the family.
Mm.
So there's all these things going. Mo's trying not to panic. Tiara is on her way to the hospital. Tiara came up to the hospital with her laptop. She's like, I'm coming. What do I do? Do you need me to stop at the store and get anything? Does she need clothes? Like, do you need clothes? Like, Tiara, and like just showed up. Okay. And Tiara's in the hospital, like looking for flights for my parents, like on her lap, like, you know what I'm saying? Like the support was real. And like my doula, was like coming and like she has other clients. So she's like making her way to the hospital. And so yeah, they come in, they said, we're gonna have a baby. We finally get into like our labor and delivery room, and then they push Pitocin. So the Pitocin is supposed to try, so their goal was to try to get me to go into labor and to try to have the baby vaginally. So at first they weren't
Mm.
like, where they didn't go straight to the C-section. They're like, we're going to try. So they tried to push Pitocin and try to get me to induce. But my body was going through so much, I could not, like, I couldn't dilate. Like I was in the hospital for Friday. They pushed Pitocin Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All I dilated was 5 centimeters, right? Like,
Sheesh.
and during that time, I'm not on pain medication. So like they're asking me like, are you feeling your contractions? I'm like, no, like all day Friday, I'm watching Netflix. And then my nurses are coming in like,
Stop.
sis, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, what? I'm wait, like, what are we like, yeah. And they ended up pushing Pitocin twice because like I would only dilate it so far. Um, I think Saturday morning we broke my water because my water wouldn't break. But also
Right.
at the time, like because I had preeclampsia and because I was on a catheter, I could not get up and move. So it wasn't like I could get up and like walk around to try to like move the baby, like and like naturally try to like get myself to
Mm.
go into labor. I had to be in the bed. But luckily my doula was there and she was helping me like change positions as much as I could, like on my hands and knees and like, standing by the bed and things like that to try to get Amina to shift, especially after they broke my water. Because after you break your water, it's like, well, we need to get her out of there as soon as possible because infection. And like, there's no cushion for her. So like,
Right.
essentially, like, her head is going to be like causing pressure on my cervix that's not dilating. So,
Oh my
um,
God, the stress.
yeah. So like, here we are. It's like my parents are finally there. Most parents are there. It's like Saturday 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm having contractions. Everybody else sleep in the room. First of all, Mo's like falling asleep in between my contractions, and he's like holding my hand, so like he'll wake up and like help me through my contraction. My parents are in the corner snoring. His parents on the other room is snoring. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Like I can't even fall asleep between my contractions, and all y'all in here snoring. So my parents and his parents actually end up leaving, and around like four, I like looked over at him because at this point, like I'm not on like any pain medication, so I'm just going through
Mm.
contractions that are coming back to back all by myself. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, okay, look, we've been in this hospital for 4 days. I'm tired and I want my baby. You know what I'm saying? And like now I'm worried about her because she's just chilling in there by herself. Um, so I was like, I need an epidural. Like I'm tired. And so my doctors come back, they do a cervical exam. They're like, look, we probably need to do a C-section. And I was like, well, is that gonna mean you're gonna pull this Pitocin out so I can stop having these crazy, crazy contractions? Because with the Pitocin, your contractions might be even more painful than if they were naturally coming, you know what I'm saying? And like they hurt. And like they were coming back to back. So they're like, yeah. So at that point, I'm like, cool, let's go ahead and do the C-section. And so like a whole nother scary set of thoughts, right? Because like Mo had to go like get himself ready, and like we had to separate at some point. And like my nurse, I was really lucky that like one of the nurses that I really liked was there on that shift, because I was like, do you got me? Like, and she's like, I got you. Super emotional. I'm like crying in her arms because like now they have to give me a spinal, right? Like I'm leaning over and they're like sticking this in my
No.
back because I'm about to have surgery. And like I'm freaking out. Like my partner, like, you know what I'm saying, he's not in the room with me. Like my parents aren't, like, at that point my parents had already gone back to the hospitals, I mean their hotel, so we had to call them and be like, Sydney's going to surgery, like come back. So like all these emotions, I'm like, oh my god, it's a C-section, am I gonna make it, like am I gonna see my baby, plus I'm tired as fuck, like I haven't slept like in a day, so like all
Oh.
this stuff. So I was the dope part about it is like, of course, me trying to be in high spirits. Really, they're like rolling me back, and I'm like, oh, it's all ladies in here. Like my whole room, I was like, it's all ladies in here. They're like, yeah, and I was like, and I'm having a girl, and so like I was like, I feel the girl power, like, you know. And I think there was one. I think my anesthesiologist, somebody that came in was a man. But for the most part, it was women, and I was like, "This is dope!" Like, and so like, you know, spinal lay me back. I was cold, so they had all these. You saw pictures, the pictures of me like with the blankets all over my head. I was
Yeah.
freezing. So they had like heated blankets all over me, and like my nurse was like standing there, like rubbing my shoulder. Eventually, Mo came in. They set him by my head, so he was there. And you know, you feel the tugging. So like they're like, "All right, here we go," and like they're like, you know, tugging, and like 11 minutes
Moving
later.
your insides around. Literally, they have like they're moving your shit around to
Yeah,
get the
right, and they're, like,
baby.
pushing down, and they're, you know, and here they pull her up, and Amina's there, like, you know, and as soon as they, like, I'm, like, sleeping halfway through this whole experience, and as soon as they raised her up, I was like, "Okay," closed my eyes and went to sleep. I'm tired, like, my part is done. Close me up. Give my baby to her daddy. Let's go. So,
Oh my
so yeah,
god.
they closed me up. They put her on my chest. We wheeled back to the room. Immediately got to breastfeed, which was cool. And so after the breastfeeding, you know, or after the birth, they come in. She latched, but my milk hadn't come all the way through. Which, I mean, you know, you have your sticky, your liquid gold, your colostrum, but like my actual milk hasn't come through. So because
Uh-huh.
she was right at 37 weeks, she was only what, 4 pounds 9 ounces. She was tiny. They were worried about, you know, all babies are going to lose a little bit of weight when they're first born, but they're worried about her losing a lot and her not getting a lot of milk. So I did have an experience where they're like, well, we're going to need to give her formula in this hospital. And I was like, no, you're just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what else can we do? Fortunately, at GW, they also have donor breast milk. So in the meantime, I think
Oh,
like
so they weren't even gonna offer you donor breast milk? They were just gonna go straight to formula.
right. So, yeah, so I was like, okay, well, bring me the information on the donor breast milk. Let me read into it. So I read about it, and I was like, well, yeah, like I'd rather do this than, you know, give her the synthetic form. Just for me specifically, my personal, I wanted to give her donor breast milk over formula. And so, I think the second day when we first moved over into postpartum, that's what I was giving her while I was still trying to like pump and get my like supply to come up. I had multiple different lactation consultants come in, and like a couple of them really, I was just like, sis, get out, get out. Like, but
Wow.
one woman, the black lactation consultant that I saw was really helpful. And she was like she also made me feel like I could do it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she was like, you know, like didn't come in like the first lactation consultant that came in, I didn't like her because she came in and like basically tried to do it for me. I don't need you to try to breastfeed for me. I need you to try to help me because when I go home, you're not gonna be able to do it for me. But she like
Mhm.
came in and like grabbed Amina's head and like put her up to like, and I was like, I don't need that. Like, so the other consultant came in and like kind of like, well, let me see what you're doing, and like coach me through it rather than like do it for me. And I could appreciate
Mhm.
that because like now you're helping me to help myself.
Was the
Uh,
first lady a white lady?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately. But I mean, like my nurse, and like I'm not saying that like, you know, like there's whatever, but like the nurses that I loved the most were the white nurses that I had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
definitely. I mean, nurses are literally superheroes, but in
yeah,
general. But it is, I mean, there's something to say that with your lactation experience, one of your experiences was not enjoyable, not helpful, didn't try to identify with you in any way or like
Mhm.
help you through it, versus like when you did see the Black lactation service, person, it was more of a coaching thing, like you said, which I think is like, those are the small things which like you can say like, well, that was just one experience. Like, sure, that's just one experience. And like, no shade to the first lady. Like, you just preferred not to have her type of help. Maybe someone else would have preferred that. It's no shade, but at the same time, like, I can't ignore the fact that in that moment, like perhaps she was just trying to like come in and out and didn't want to like really take the time to sit and help and identify with you. And like, I don't know if she was doing that with the white mother down the hall or if she was sitting, like maybe it's that person's comfort level,
Mhm.
working across cultures. Like, this is going to sound like crazy and like like I don't know, I just feel like, not sound crazy, but it's like, those are the things that I feel like especially like non-black people might hear and say like, that's not a good example, or like that's maybe not like what you're talking about in terms of like racism in the healthcare system, but like it
It is,
is a little bit, because you are a black woman and
yeah, and,
you,
like,
yeah,
even, like, deeper, right, when you're thinking like, when we're talking about coming from, like, a cultural lens or, like, thinking from a specific lens, like, as a Black woman who wants to breastfeed, I need whoever's walking into that room to understand what that means, like, in
yeah,
society, like, first of all, Black women and breastfeeding in this country have, like, a bizarre relationship because of society. Y'all made it seem like we weren't supposed to like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know so many people who were like, "You're gonna breastfeed your baby?" Like, Black women, like, Black people specifically, and it's like, for some reason, society paints this picture of like white women breastfeeding being like this flowy and all natural and like, oh, it's so wonderful, and like Black women breastfeeding being like this like weird, like hard to do, like, oh, it's unnatural, your body's not made for it type of shit, and like that's not
mm,
even realistic. And like that right there honestly plays into just the racism and like the history of the Black female body being disrespected and disregarded and abused in America, period, right? Like
right,
we can
right.
talk about that all day,
Oh
but
God, yeah, don't even get us started.
but like yeah, so like when you walk into the room, understand that like this, there's probably a part of me that's already thinking like I can't do this because like so many women in the Black community have already felt like we couldn't do this, right? And like specifically coming from me, like my mom only was able to, like, quote unquote, my mom only breastfed one of us out of five, you know what I'm saying? So like it wasn't like I had someone who's like, yeah, I breastfed all my babies, and Sydney, now I'm going to teach you know what I'm saying? Like there's not a long line of breastfeeding women for me and my family. So I would need someone to come in and understand that like that's a reality and like help me from that point of view. You know what I'm
I
saying? Like,
didn't even think about that. I have no idea if I was breastfed. I want to feel.
and like
I want to feel like I said. I want to feel like I wasn't, because what? Like I would have heard about it.
yeah, and like I mean, sometimes like it's not even like it's not presented as an option to us, right? Like I mentioned about the formula thing, like Black women are like three times more likely to be offered formula after they give birth instead of being asked if they're going to breastfeed, right? Like that right there is like, well, why would you assume that I want to, why wouldn't you assume that I couldn't feed my child myself? Like why do you think that you need to
Yeah.
offer me
Why
that?
is that? Why? It's just like
And
it's
then it's presented
systemic.
as
It's
like,
just
"Oh,
systemic.
well, it's easier for you, you know, like, it's gonna be less hard like, less taxing on your body, and then you can just, like, take it anywhere and, like, make a bottle whenever," like, but it like, if society made it easier for me to stay home and feed my kid, that would be the
Yeah.
easiest thing for me.
I was. Yeah. I was gonna say. Do you feel like that stems from the idea that like,
You need to get back and go to work?
yes, and like black women aren't like, we're not staying at home. We're working jobs.
Because we're
Not
not
like
allowed we're
regular
not
9 to 5s.
exactly, we're not granted the work to stay at home. Like, think about a mom who's, like, working a part-time job and she gets pregnant, right? Like, 1, her insurance might not even be covering, like, the prenatal stuff that she needs to be going through and all the, like, appointments and stuff. 2, her job probably is not gonna even offer her, like, paid leave, so she's probably gonna take unpaid leave and then be behind, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these systems that are in place for, like, it not to work unless you're gonna go and work your ass off while also, like, it's just like you want it's like no way to win. Like, I don't even know how
Yeah.
to explain it.
And I feel like too, like that is why that might be why some lactation specialists or nurses or doctors, whatever, assume that Black women want to breastfeed, which isn't every Black woman's story, right? Like there are millions of Black women who work 9 to 5s, who are entrepreneurs, who have the flexibility to do what the fuck they want to do. And you're, as the healthcare provider, assuming that I don't have that when maybe I do have that. Maybe I am already a stay-at-home homemaker or mom, and like you're assuming that I have to go back to my night shift when that's not me. You know what I mean? So you're offering me formula, and you have no idea, you don't know me at all, which is insane.
My biggest thing is like, it's weird that like things aren't presented as options. Like you're not giving me all the options. You're just telling me one thing. And then when I say no, you're like, oh, okay, well then since you said no, here's something else. Like tell me everything that I can get. Show me the whole menu. Like what are you doing?
Oh my God, stress. So do you have any like other, like just to sort of like bring us full circle, like you mentioned that Black women are 3 times more likely to be offered formula over the option to breastfeed. Like, do you have any other like facts like that I feel like will help listeners and people and women and men? I feel like men should definitely listen to this episode because they even know less than women. And I feel like women don't even know that much. But like, what other things, like if I got pregnant tomorrow, knock on wood, but let's just say that happened. Let's just say that hypothetically that happened. Although it's not. Like what other statistics should I be aware of so that I know how to best educate myself?
Okay, so I think specifically for Black women and thinking about like postpartum, right? Like after baby's here.
Mm-hmm.
Black women are more likely to develop postpartum depression. And that really again touches on access and support, because a lot of the times Black women, well sometimes like they're not presented the options, right? Their insurance doesn't cover it, or like they're afraid of reaching out for postpartum services because of the like a fear of social services
Stigma.
getting involved, right? Like there's a sect of people that are like, if I say that like I'm having postpartum like depression, if I'm experiencing postpartum depression, I'm scared they're gonna take my kids away.
Huh.
You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
like that's a reality. Like there are people who are definitely afraid of that because their experiences in social services have not been positive. So it's like,
Ooh,
do I get the services I need to help me get out of this depression, or do I try to get through this as best as I can so that I can keep my kids?
that's
You know what I
wild.
mean? So I mean, I think that's a thing, and I think we really need to focus on the idea of postpartum support, and like that gets back to just like community support, and like also like, you know, like it takes a village to raise a family, you know, or raise a kid. Like family support, community support, friend support. It's so important, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think a lot of attention goes on the baby when the baby's here, but like we need to also pay attention to the parents, and not even just the birther, but both people, the person who had the baby and the other partner. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, there's a lot that both people are going to be going through, and like they need somebody to talk to, or at least like some time. Like there's so many shifts. Like you have this baby and your hormones have been doing this thing for 9 months, and now this person is not a part of you and the placenta is out, and now you're
Right.
having this whole different hormonal shift on top of having to be a parent, on having to take care of yourself, and also healing physically. So like understanding just like there's going to be a lot happening throughout this whole entire process, and like it's different for everybody, but like support is a like constant that is needed.
Yeah. And I would say too, like there's so much more research to be done. Like I feel like even with racial disparities in the healthcare system, at least when I'm doing research, I feel like this year specifically, more research has come out. Like I was just reading an article on CNN. I'm going to link it in this episode. But literally back in August, CNN released a article that there was like finally a study, like an actual medical study done at George Mason University, where they saw that Black newborn babies in the United States are more likely to survive childbirth when they're cared for by Black doctors, but 3 times more likely than white babies to die when they're looked after by Black doctors. Like that is a psychotic like I can't even
Yeah.
process that statistic in my mind. Like my black baby, if I have a white doctor, might be 3 times more likely to die than the white baby down the hallway. Like,
And then you have to think about that, right? And be like, okay, well, like, if so, what do I do? Do I not go to the hospital? And if I don't want to go to the
right.
hospital, how do I have a home birth if the state that I live in doesn't even give me the option to have like a home birth midwife, or like doesn't have birthing centers that I can go to? So like that's
Yeah.
added
And
stress.
I feel like I'm now like assuming, and yeah, whatever. I'm assuming, but I feel like white people, like, because even when I hear that statistic as a black person, I'm like, how the fuck is, like, these people are doctors, right? And so I feel like I'm like, how the fuck
Yeah.
are these doctors letting these babies die? Just babies, like they're babies, like black, white, whatever. These are helpless babies. And
Yeah.
so even as like we put doctors on this pedestal of
Mhm.
like all knowing and like they know what's right, like I feel like your first gut reaction to that is like, that can't be true. Like doctors aren't letting black babies die like that. Like doctors care for all types of people. Like, no, sis, do research. I'm literally going to link this exact article in the episode notes for this episode because I need y'all to understand what is happening in this healthcare system and why, when I have my child, I'm going to be at a way higher risk, me and my child, not just me, although black women are 3 times more likely to die during childbirth than white women, so is my baby. And so that is like, when you think about like adulting, right? And like getting to that phase in your life when you're building your family and like what things you have to consider, you know, as black women and black families, like these are things that white families that like don't even have to cross their
Yeah.
mind. And that is like what I want to like really like bring home, is that like these aren't just like statistics people are pulling out of their ass. Like this is happening in the healthcare system in the United States every single fucking day. Young women, 23, 25, under 30, mid 30s are dying in
Yeah.
childbirth for no reason.
Yeah. They're
And
actually, it's a couple days ago on the 10th. I think it was the 10th. This is really unfortunate, and I can't think of the state, but there was a 17-year-old mom who passed away a couple days after having her baby. She's gone.
like,
She's
what?
gone. 17.
And
7.
who, and it's like, what, how did we get here, right? Like some doctor along the way maybe didn't listen to her saying that she, you know, she had a symptom of this, or like some doctor in the delivery room like didn't take a load test seriously, you know, like who knows what things happened to along the way that had to result in this child, poor 17-year-old,
Right.
passing away. But like it's not, my thing is like, it's probably not one instance. It's
Right.
probably throughout her 40 weeks, you know, something could have been caught at 10 weeks or 20
Yeah.
weeks or 30 weeks that wasn't caught because she wasn't taken seriously as a black woman, maybe because she's 17, like whatever the fucking reason is. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So I'm like worked up now because I'm like,
Yeah. 'Cause
this is stressful.
it's
It's stressful.
negligence. It's like along the way there was negligence. Like y'all were being negligent. Y'all weren't listening. There was something that you didn't do, and it's like, okay, like we're here, we get it. There's something you didn't do. So what the hell are we gonna do to make sure that this does not happen no more? Like we know
Right.
that there's some stuff that is not happening that needs to happen. So what do
Mm-hmm.
we do? What are we gonna do about that? Like that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we can't just keep. We got to go to the hospital. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you have to, like, there are some women that have to, or there are some women that want to. Some birthing people
Mm-hmm.
who want to have their baby in a hospital. And if you want to have your baby in a hospital, you should be able to do that without the fear that someone isn't going to listen to you and something might not go, then something, you might not go home. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so traumatic. Like, even for me, like, the thought, first of all, I've never been to a hospital. I've never been admitted to a hospital outside of being giving birth. I've never had to like go into a hospital and do this. Like that
Mm.
whole experience was my first experience with doctors like that and nurses coming into like a room.
Oh
You know
shit.
what I'm saying? So that already was like shaking me. But then I'm thinking like, Sydney, you've been here for 3 days. Like shit looks like feels kind of like it's going downhill because you're not progressing. Like you have to like actively in your mind tell yourself like you're going to be okay, but at the same time you're like, am I though? Because like there are a lot of people who haven't. So like what makes me
Holy
what
shit.
you know what I'm saying? Like So it's such an experience, and it's like there are things that we can do to make these experiences better, and like we need to focus on how we can do that. And like doula support and birth support is like one of those things, one of those small fixes that we can just insert. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not taken away from the doctor, it's not taken away from the nurse. It's literally an extra person that's there to do what else isn't being done, which is focus
Mm,
on that person.
yeah, that's super dope. Oh my gosh, I feel like, well, we Sid and I both know we could literally talk for literally like 3 straight hours, but we're not going to do that to you guys today. Um, Sid, tell us like what you have, how people can connect with you, anything you have coming up that you want people to know about. How people can get more information about doula. Like, give us all the things. Shout out your stuff. Plug your stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me at From Sid with Love. That's on Facebook and Instagram. And so From Sid with Love essentially is my doula business. I offer birth doula support. I also offer like birth planning and postpartum planning. So if you're not specifically looking to have a doula through your whole process, you just want to focus on like, okay, how do I put together a plan of like my preferences and
Mm-hmm.
about birth? I offer those services. I actually have a free birth planning class coming up on September 25th at 4 p.m. And so you can go to my Instagram. The link is in the bio to register for that. So it's free for all birthing people or all people who just want to learn about like what goes into a birthing plan, like what is a birthing plan used for? Because like, of course, birth is its own experience. So like, just because you write it down doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? But like, we're
Right.
getting educated on like, well, what can I ask for and what are my options so that when these things come up, I know what to do, and also like I can communicate to my provider, this is what I want. And like it's written right here in this cute little one page form. And if I'm like going through a heavy contraction and I can't talk to you, you can refer to this, or my partner can refer to this,
Mm,
so that everyone's on the same page. Yeah, and so I also offer placenta encapsulation and belly binding, but due to COVID, like I'm only doing things virtually. So
right.
if you are looking for a virtual doula and some virtual support, you can also go to www.doulasid.com. That's my website, and it has some more information on there. And so I also do parent education and childbirth education. So I'll have some classes for that popping up. But right now, like I'm all for talking to parents who have any questions about like child development, infant development, youth development, all that jazz.
Yeah, that you look. Whenever I get to my phases in life, you're obviously I already told you're going to be my doula. And look, Terrence, like some of the things he says, he just has no idea. Like literally, we were talking the other day about having like children or whatever, and I was like talking about my concern about like the risk for Black women, and he's like, "Well, that's not going to be a problem because as soon as you have the baby, we're just gonna leave like right after you have the baby." I'm like, not
Wait, leave
exactly.
where?
Literally, like I feel like I was like, "Oh, babe, like whenever this happens, you're gonna have to do some reading
Yeah, okay, no,
because
we're gonna get him right because like I said, I work with both people, like, I'm not just a birther, so we're gonna have some books and some, and that's another thing, like, it's about the education, so, like, for my clients, like, I have, like, a whole, like, portal essentially of, like, videos and, like, handouts and,
so
like,
cool.
hit me up if you have questions, but, like, you can read this on your own time and, like, demonstrations for you to understand, like, what is my placenta and, like, what should I be feeling in the 3rd trimester and things like that, so it's fun.
Dope.
So, yeah, when that time comes, it's gonna be a blast. I'm
Oh
trying to
my
get all my friends
gosh.
pregnant.
I know. Sydney's like trying to get us all in a pregnancy pack. You might have Tiffany. Tiffany is ready to go. That girl is like, come on. Shout out to you, Tiff. No, but I'm so thankful that you were able to come on today. We're also gonna I'll post Sydney's Instagram page and website on our Millennials Making Move page on donewithadulting.com. So another way you can find her if you missed this, we'll also put all of her information in the notes for this episode. So you have absolutely no excuse how you can find Sid. She's awesome. And if you are thinking about having a baby, you're already pregnant, you're whatever your situation is, definitely consider using a doula. And I'm sure Sydney, you are awesome. she will be able to give you all the information you need, you guys. So thank you so much, Sid, for coming on. This was so much fun.
Yes, thank you for having me. I was real nervous, but this was cool.
This was so cool. And you guys know, if you like this episode and this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and give us a review. Give Sid a follow on Instagram at From Sid with Love. Follow us on Instagram at Done with Adulting Pod. And yeah, thank you again, Sid. And we will talk to you guys next week.